Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Elizabeth Pearson is the founder of Simple Successful Stocks, a company which helps women in particular learn how to invest. What she likes most about networking is making new friends. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
Now, you're an investor who helps other women to understand the world of investing, but you started out in architecture. So tell me what it was that drew you to that field initially.
I was drawn to architecture initially because I had the right A-levels, I had a friend who was interested in it, and actually my mum had always said I was really affected, like my mood was very affected by the surroundings. And for that reason, I thought it would be a really good thing to do, because then I could create environments that were places that I really wanted to be in.
And so how did you find it when you actually started working in it? Was it what you wanted?
Well, it's really hard. I mean, it's a long training, and it's my experience of when I was working in it. It was that it wasn't very creative. There was a small part that was creative, and a lot of it it's. I mean, I'd really admire people to do it. It's a hard slog, and a lot of it at the early stages is drawing on computers, computer-aided design, and I really was not very good at that. So it was tough.
So how long did you spend in architecture?
So it took me 12 years in the end to qualify. It should only take 7, and I had various kind of, to be or not to be an architect on the way. And then I worked as a qualified architect probably about 4 years in, designing buildings. And then I moved sideways I worked in the public sector, I worked for a developer, I worked for a charity, and then I finally decided to leave altogether.
And so when did you start getting interested in investing?
Well, I started in the early 2000s, I would say. So I wanted to find a way of having a better communication with my dad, I suppose. And I decided that the best way to do that was to ask him to teach me something that he had taught himself and he had a real passion for, which was investing. So he taught me how to invest. He didn't tell me what to do. He told me how to go about it, how to think about it. And it turned out, because I was so busy, really, being an architect, and I didn't take it personally when things went up and down, I was really good at it. So it was actually really to do with love, actually, and my dad.
Yeah, so it wasn't something that you had prior knowledge of before then?
No, I didn't know anything about it at all. So, yeah.
So if you hadn't been able to learn from your dad, how easy would it have been to find out the information on how to go about investing?
Oh, I just don't think I ever would have come across it, because he was, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't something that was ever talked about or I knew about from school. Or it's just I was very fortunate to have a role model and to somebody I knew and somebody I trusted that I could then learn from. I'd never would have done it without him at all.
Yeah. So how had he taught himself?
Well, my dad is fantastic. Once he decides that he's going to do something, he's very focused. So he read, he learned, he experimented. So he taught himself, he educated himself, made mistakes and learnt from them.
Yeah. And so when did you decide that you wanted to help other people to do the same?
I was in between jobs, and a friend of mine suggested, why don't you run a class teaching other people what you know? So I was kind of, I think the phrase I use is like crafting these experiments, sort of working out what I might do as my job in architecture had come to an end. So I put together a class one afternoon, and I had some friends round as my little guinea pigs, and they really enjoyed it, and it sort of took off from there, really. I mean, I had no idea I would be where I am now, and I'm really pleased that I am. So it was just one step at a time.
Yeah. And so at what point did you decide to actually make a business out of this?
It was, I had a lovely job working for a charity, and I suppose I just got to the end of what I could learn really, and what I discovered as I went along as an investor, as a female investor, is that I was in the minority. I would go to these investing shows, and there were very few women there, and that there's this big gap. There's a savings gap for women, there's an investing gap, there's a pension gap, and that I just felt I felt if I can make a difference here, in terms of financial education for women, this is where I can make a contribution.
Yeah. And so how do you help them? What do you do to get them started?
Well, I think there are various things that really get in the way of everyone investing, really. There are a lot of fears. So, and a lot of my work is sort of reassuring people that they're not going to lose all their money. They can start small, with like even £1. You can start investing with £1. They don't, it doesn't need to take a long time. Like I invested alongside my life. I think the picture that people have of investing is that like sitting in front of these screens going up and down and who wants to do that every day? I mean, some people do. That's trading, not investing. And investing, the success of investing is to do it at a level where people feel safe, to do it with the amount of money they feel happy doing it, gaining confidence, and then making a habit. So a lot of it is really about how to approach it. It's not you don't need to know everything to do it, which I think is also where women get stuck, is we think we've got to know everything before we do it, and then it's so full of jargon, it's just very daunting.
Yeah. So what kind of format does your training take?
Well, I run taster classes, which sometimes in person or online, which are giving people the basics of investing, the kind of the what, the why, the how. And my favourite thing is to work with women one-to-one, because that I find is because everyone is in their own, has their own sort of financial way of looking at things, their own financial, where they are with their money and things. And a lot of what I can do is just sit with people or on screen and just take them through step by step what they need to do to open an account, put some money in, and then buy something with it. And then it's like they're away. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So what kind of success have people had?
Well, varied really. I mean, I think for a lot of women, actually just starting investing and doing something that they've thought about doing but not really known where to start or who to trust is really empowering. I mean, I can't, like with the stock market, it always is like I have no control over what people's results are.
No.
But I think the actual fact that women have started and seen their money grow, and sometimes it comes down, it goes up and down, but just teaching that sort of, that's okay, that things when you invest will go up and go down, and that's all part of getting your money to work for you in the long time, and not to panic is important.
So how much time, so as a minimum, do you think people need to spend on this? Because obviously everybody's busy, and that, as you say, it's one of the things that does put people off. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think if you want to set yourself up as I would say, sort of simple, sort of successful investor, you can do that in a few hours. Absolutely, you can do that. And then the idea really is to just leave your money to grow, and then to look at it once a year. You might sort of rebalance things or, put some more money in. So that's, I would say, sort of simple investing. Then you can also do something a bit more adventurous. And when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're buying the simple investing things called funds. So funds are these pots of money where lots of investors put their money, and then it's used to buy a lot of different investments or lots of different stocks and shares. And what you're doing by that, you're then diversified. So if one company does badly, it means that, not all, you're balanced out, because there'll be lots of other companies that are also doing fine. But then what you can also do, which I also teach to people, which does take a bit more time, a bit more capital, is to choose a kind of portfolio of individual stocks and shares. And you can use like a kind of hard financial facts to do that. And that, I would say, let me see now. I'd say maybe takes 3 or 4 hours every 4 months, something like that. So, I mean, I still have to work on that. It's not, I don't skip over to my computer and think, yeehaw, I've got to sort out my investments. It's still, it's still a push for me, even though I've been doing this for a long time. And what is amazing is that the kind of reward from that, my experience, not always, has been far greater than I could have earned from my jobs. And that's the idea, is to get your money working for you in the long term.
Yeah, yeah. And, as we know, you're not going to earn very much in a bank account at the moment, are you?
Well, things are better now with interest rates, but we don't know how long that's going to go on for. So, that is the idea, yeah.
So why do you think it is that people shy away from doing this, particularly women? Why do they have less confidence?
I think there's a historical reason for that. So women over time, their ability to participate in financial matters, investing, has been limited over time. I mean, for a long time, women and their property and anything they owned or created was seen to be part of their, was owned by their husband. And often single women and widowed women could do more and still not the same as their kind of male investing counterpart. So that's been that's been a big problem. And then as a result of that, women just don't see other women doing it. I mean, that is changing. It absolutely is changing it. But, I had this role model of my dad. Without him, I just wouldn't even know such things existed. So that's been a big problem. The other thing, that women generally have less to invest. We earn less. We bear the responsibilities of sort of childcare and caring for relatives later on in life. So we just have less financial freedom to invest. And I think the other thing is that there was a recent report from the Starling Bank about the images that were used, in terms of the different images used for men and women in advertising financial products. And it was really interesting because with men, it was pictures of cars and kind of wallets full of cash. And then for women, it was pictures of piggy banks with like pennies going in, and then sort of being told not to splurge money on shoes. So there is that bias of that we're not good with money, basically, which is not true, of course, and is historical and still pervades, sort of pervades that culture.
Yeah, interesting. There's still those stereotypes there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's have a chat about networking now then. Was networking something you ever did when you were employed as an architect?
No, actually. No, I never did any networking. I was too busy drawing toilets and toilet tiles to do any networking.
So tell me about...
Which I hated.
So tell me about your networking now. How do you like to network?
Well, I do like to network, and I never thought I was very good at networking. And then I realised that networking was all about making friends. And actually, I like making friends, and I'm quite chatty, and so I enjoy that. So, yes, I do. I go to probably about one networking event a week, and I really and then I talk to people in my day-to-day life all the time. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So how does networking work for you? Do you find that that's a good way to get business?
I do. Yes, I really enjoy networking. I didn't think I was very good at it, and then I realised that actually it was a matter of making friends, and I enjoy meeting people and finding out who they are, and so I do get a lot of my business through that, partly through formal networking events, and then also through being out and about in my day-to-day life.
Yeah. And so what kind of response do you get from people at networking meetings when you tell them what you do? Because it is a bit different.
I think because I'm really clear about what I offer and who I help, people either go, yes, great, that's for me, or it's not for me, or it's for somebody else, or it's just not their thing. So it's, and I suppose it does, yes, I often find people say, oh, I've never met anybody who does what you do. And I'm like, no. Which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you introduce yourself when you meet someone?
So I sort of learned about saying, so what I say is I work with women generally women who want to understand money, get it working for them by investing, and really don't know where to start or who to trust. And what I do is I give them knowledge and confidence to invest themselves in the stock market and take charge of their financial future. So that's like my captivating introduction, my elevator pitch.
Yeah. And well, I would be interested in that. I'm
well,
sure you must get lots of people interested. So why would you recommend networking to other people?
I would recommend it because it's about people. So I'm a people person. I'm not a digital person. And I think it works on lots of levels. So for me anyway, it creates business. I've also found through it really helpful people who have been really helpful in, where I've needed help in my business life, and also other things outside of that. And I've also made friends as well. So on all those levels, I really like it.
Yeah. Now, something I noticed in your LinkedIn profile that I really want to ask you about is one of the things you describe yourself as is being an ice cream van driver.
Yes, I know. Well, that was an early career move, short-lived, in rural Essex. So I had this job. It was before I went off to do architecture, driving an ice cream van, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was. Yeah, I used to drive around all the villages where the catchment area of my school, and sell ice cream. And it was just. It was very lucrative actually. On a hot bank holiday weekend, it was. I could take home £600 in cash. I have to say though, I did eat quite a lot of my stock because it was quite dull. And so my record was like three magnums in a row. And sometimes I used to drive home, and driving and going round roundabouts in an ice cream van is such fun. Is sort of sweating sugar because I'd eaten all this ice cream. But it was great.
Sounds like the kind of summer everyone should have.
Yes, it was an early and very successful career move. Yeah.
So just finally then, Elizabeth, if people want to know more about you and about investing, what's the best place for them to find you?
Well, please do find me on my website. So my website is simplesuccessfulstocks.co.uk. 2 C's, 2 S's. I'm not saying that because I sometimes have to think about how to spell that when I write my own email. And there you can find a complimentary free guide. The girls just want to have funds, the 7 simple and sparkly steps to start investing, and that will really kind of give you a little overview of it, how to start, where to start, and there's not a single chart, there's no figures, there's lots of nice pictures. It's it's really fun. But and connect with me on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Pearson, or on Instagram at Simple Successful Stocks, and it'll be lovely to hear from you.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest. And I'm definitely going to go and check out your website and download your simple guide. And best of luck with your business and with your networking.
Thank you so much for having me on, Liz. It's been delightful. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.